This comment is basically explaining the reason why you shouldn't merge bus services. And yes, the explanation on Service 5 is good. It just means there needs to be a direct kind of fast link. And that's the reason why you cannot break Service 5 up. And then the other things on this list are pretty much like self-explanatory. Like from 9, 1989, 10, 15, 21 as well, I've mentioned about that. And I think City Harbor is probably referring to like Tanjong Berlayer or something. I also do like the idea of 23M. It just depends on how you create on it and what's your purpose for this service. And then you might have a question regarding something along the lines of, could we extend 23 to become bidirectional and then make a 23M? And my answer to that is that if you're thinking along these lines, I don't blame you, but there are actually quite a lot of people taking from Tampines West or even Bedok North to all the way to Serangoon Road. They actually take it past the loop because they want to get to Serangoon Road and not Jalan Besar. But having said that, right, if you just want a extended 23M variant, kind of like in the style of 901M but longer, I could actually entertain it, provided that there are people who really want a faster route to Tampines West in general. Yeah, I could entertain that. But the most important part of this comment is that it's self-explanatory, but this is the reason why typically you do not break all the straight line services like service 2, service 24 as well. All of these, it's basically the reasons why. Here's the explanation of 2 and 12. You could just read it yourself. But yeah, good points. I have no idea what they won with 27, honestly. And 28, yeah, you can see the hypocrisy with them. 30 is all about the last bus, it's correct. And the fact that they even want to change 39, I have absolutely no idea why they want to do that. Because it's a route that has existed since 2002. Like the connectivity has already been there for like 23 years, and then nowadays it also has Pongo, so all the more you cannot really justify cutting it. And likewise, I don't even know why 43 was even being brought up in the first place. Possibly because they hate the existence of 43E and they vehemently want to change it. And the whole thing about changing 48 just doesn't make sense to me. The entire route makes sense, so I'm not even going to comment about 49. 51 is the explanation is okay. The thing about 53 and 81 is that, like, yes, I do understand that there might have been some like, oh, cut to Bidadari Woodley ITH rumors. Yeah, that's one thing. But then again, I wouldn't really recommend doing this. Like, I would rather you just make 53 a bidirectional service and you give them a long break at Changi Airport. And 59 I've already explained. 61 is quite self-explanatory. Republic Avenue I honestly don't mind, and yes, I've already touched on the fact that 65 and 67 have to call all stops. And yes, the point about the M variants of both services here are actually valid. Same for 74, like the reasoning itself is valid. Although yes, the frequencies I kind of agree. And 147 literally has a lot of demand, so splitting it would cause more trouble. Yeah, 154 to Serangoon just makes no sense. They are cross borders, and there's a difference between SBS Transit slash SMRT and Causeway Link, the CW services. 502, if I'm not mistaken, because they have their own MRT line, that's the reason why they Crayon 502 to completely skip Orchard, Bras Basah, Suntec, and Bayfront. Again, really stupid. 518 is okay as it is. And the thing is, like, if you really wanted to experiment with the concept of a full day long distance skipping service, wait, full day long distance skip bus stop service, I don't even mind if you try it with 852 because 852 is kind of like disposable anyway. So in that regard, it doesn't really matter if you mess it up because if a service is disposable, you want to experiment with it, it's honestly fine. And likewise, 857 is already fast enough, correct. And the 858 point is actually quite good ever since the Sembawang amendment. Because with respect to Sembawang, right, it already has like such a poor connection, like poor connectivity to the outside world. So all the more, 858 being long distance actually helps because it's not even just taking people to the airport. It's taking people to the Jalan Kayu Hub bus stops and TP's Hub bus stops as well. With 858, because it's fast, right, you could like connect to other bus services. So it's not literally just 858 to airport. It also helps you connect to other services to bring you to more parts of Singapore in general. So DynoLeno has already addressed the reasons why 2, 12, and 24 should not be touched. And I just want to use this photograph that I took just now to remind you all how insanely poor the connectivity around this area is, despite it being so close to the city center. I mean, to be fair, there's also Whitley and Stevens nearby, so I shouldn't really just judge based on the bus services here. Because you see, right, 48 already diverges from Bukit Timah and Danyeon at Botanic Gardens, which is like Fair Road. 960, 960E, 972M, they are bound for the expressway, so literally the only straight running bus services, it's 67 and 170. But the problem is that most of the time 170 is pretty much non-existent. Yes, I have talked about 170 being a godsend, like after midnight, especially when your last buses have already departed and you couldn't make it for those last buses on time, but you still at least have 170 to take you close to the city center, right? So with that in mind, now that 170 is pretty much non-existent, and even 170 again, I've already mentioned the distinction between 160, 170, and the Causeway Link services, the CW services, right? The fact that one is meant to be like non-stop express and the other one is meant to cater towards like the local catchment, and obviously it's Singapore, right? So you would use Singapore bus services to do said catchment. Because politically, right, it just boils down to the fact that like a Malaysian bus operator would have more stops in Malaysia and not as many stops in Singapore, whereby the the inverse is also true naturally. The fact that 160, 170, and 950, they are supposed to have as many stops as possible in Singapore, whereas they don't even have that many stops in Malaysia in the first place. It's literally just like Johor Bahru checkpoint and then JB Central, or like Larkin in the case of like 170. And that's pretty much it. Like, because of this, right, the purpose of 160 and 170 and 950 as well is for maximum catchment within Singapore. And then if you're talking about maximum catchment within Malaysia, you would use the CW buses, right? For obvious reasons. So that's the reason why 160 and 170 they cannot skip stops, and it's also because of the last bus thingy. So okay, with that in mind, 67 literally is the only straight line service from Bukit Panjang area all the way to Little India. And one thing that Downtown Line obviously doesn't do is that Downtown Line doesn't even serve Choa Chu Kang at all. directly. So if you want to, you do not have a direct train route to Chua Chu Kang, so you take 67. And then there's a lot of people taking it from Chua Chu Kang all the way to Little India, and also from like Geylang Serai all the way to like Little India. I'm just saying the general areas. Even Bedok as well. Like people actually take 67 from Little India all the way to like Bedok North Avenue 7. I'm sorry, Bedok North Avenue 3 and Bedok Reservoir Road. Simply because you know the access penalty, right? At Little India. If they are not near DTL, they would opt to take 67 instead. And this makes it such that 67 is the only bus service catering to not only the major stops but also the intermediate stops as well. And because of this really special purpose that pretty much only 67 does, as well as 67 being a last mile, not really last mile, but it's like the last bus connectivity, either eastbound or westbound, it doesn't matter, but because it has this kind of like all stop connectivity, major stop, intermediate stop, blah blah blah, like they already removed 66 because 66 is runtime and the bus captain welfare thingy is really bad. See, it's not that they have done nothing. They already removed 66. And for obvious reasons, they chose to make 67 stay because, again, 67's purpose, if you observe 67 either during weekdays like the students or weekends, you would see that 67 in fact gets most of its demand from the intermediate stops and not just the major stops along the route. Intermediate could also mean like Chua Chu Kang Way, whereby there is no, again, direct DTL access or anything. Could also be Phoenix LRT area, like outside Teck Whye. So making 67 or 170 skip stops, in essence, like just conceptually, doesn't matter how you skip, it'll just make both of them effectively downtown line clones, and they will obviously lose demand because, again, like I told you, 67 gets most of its demand from the intermediate stops, and it's not really like, oh, people from Chua Chu Kang want fast access to Newton and Little India, or like people from Bedok want fast access to Geylang Serai and Little India. Sure, there are people doing that, but keep in mind, the intermediate stop people are still more prioritized because 67, just like 2 and 24, they are literally straight line routes designed to cater to intermediate stop people who do not have immediate MRT access or who find taking the MRT inconvenient. So the quote-unquote duplication is there for a reason. In fact, historically, 67 used to have an express sector between Boon King area. Basically, it went Serangoon Road and just PIE all the way to like Tampines Avenue 5. It had that route for like slightly more than a year or something, and then they eventually converted 67 to a local all-stop service because of the integration of like the old services like 4, 19, and 21, and therefore they made 67 even more local as compared to it being an express service. And honestly, making it local actually helped to sustain the service. Now, I am not denying the fact that 67 is literally a pain to drive sometimes, but again, it exists because of necessity. And the thing is, right, you could even push for like better bus priority along Bukit Timah Road or Dunyan Road, but you have to realize that there is only so much you can do because Bukit Timah Road and Dunyan Road, they aren't really roads that were designed for buses in the first place. So you could try, but again, there are limitations. And obviously, breaking up Service 67's route does more harm than good, especially when the demand isn't just, oh, one side to Little India and the other side to Little India. No. Without looking at the numbers, obviously, its other purposes, DTL area to Geylang Serai as well, that's another catchment, and it's especially useful when any of the MRT lines go Kapoof, sorry. But again, my main point is that it's not just a, oh, one side to Little India, one side to Little India kind of demand. It's not like Downtown Line 2 and 3, whereby it's like so clear cut. Like Little India, MacPherson, sorry, not Little India, but MacPherson and the city center as well, yada yada yada, when it comes to like demand in general. 67 is more of like one of those services whereby if it's not broken, don't try to fix it kind of thing. I know my videos lately have been really repetitive, but it's just to remind people that you shouldn't change things if they're not broken. And there are always other solutions to one problem. If we cannot reduce the runtime of 67, the other alternative is to give the PCs longer breaks, like 30-minute breaks or even 40-minute breaks. I would say 30 minutes is enough. 25 to 30 minutes. And obviously your meal breaks longer. Or you could even focus on the split shift arrangement for like 67, stuff like that. There are always other ways, I believe. I'm not really able to cover all of it in like this one short video, but I'm just saying, yeah. But yeah, I genuinely hope that I don't have to keep like making content like this.